म्यूट करके रिकॉर्डिंग शुरू कर।
रिकॉर्डिंग चालू कर दी।
जी आनंद जी अनम्यूट कर लो।
अपन अच्छे समय पे निकल गए।
Chidanand ji, now we can start.
All right. Good evening, namaste, everybody. Happy to join you after a pretty long time. I compliment Sushil Jain and the team for carrying this on every Thursday. For all that we know, and listening to someone who has something to share without any prejudice, if we listen with no bias, that can act as a wonderful agent for our shedding, our dropping very many false beliefs or prejudices. Therefore, I compliment the organizing team for keeping up this every Thursday presentation followed by interaction. This evening, I thought of sharing some thoughts with all of you on order in daily life. For when I look back at my association with Krishnaji's teachings for about 20 years now, what has very much inspired me and what comes across as very essential to the teachings is being aware of the contradictions in our own daily life. In one sense, we may call it conflicts and contradictions, and in another sense, it is the same as the grip that habits have upon us. And when I use the word habits, I guess it also means our being mechanical. Mechanical not only physically or in some outer manners, the way we walk, the way we talk, etc. But there is so much of mechanicalness in our psychological life. We are clinging to certain habits, certain thoughts. We cling to certain thought patterns. We do not let go of certain particular ways of pursuing thought. Call it beliefs. All said and done, even if some insight comes our way, we try to bend that insight to fit into our belief rather than check out our belief against that insight, which tends to shake our belief. We generally try to safeguard our beliefs. So, all this, which once more can be called conditioning, creates so much of disorder in individual as well as collective life of us, the humanity. Humanity, at the same time, has always been searching. In fact, it has been struggling to find what would be right living. Therefore, thinkers and philosophers, religious people, and others have always endeavored to come out with their model of right living, what it is to be virtuous, what it is to be good, what it is to be moral, and so on and so forth. Volumes and volumes have been written, books of wisdom, scriptures, traditional works, etc., are not in shortage. Despite all of them, alas, we remain confused species on the earth, and many a time all these traditional works have contributed immensely to sustain and fortify even our beliefs. Not only in religious context, but in various other contexts. Other day I was watching a short video on Abraham Lincoln, and something came to my knowledge which I never knew before. Abraham Lincoln, all of us know, looked at all equally, and he worked for removal of slavery in United States, and he paid heavily for it. In fact, he died as a result of his setting all the blacks free from the practice of slavery. But what I watched on that short video on YouTube was, before Abraham Lincoln, somebody else was the president, and in the previous election, that other guy had defeated Abraham Lincoln, and that other guy, who was also a very powerful leader of America those days, was vehemently maintaining a position. It was said in the video that that gentleman openly and loudly said, "I believe that democracy and the practice of slavery can coexist. There is no contradiction between democracy and slavery," he went on saying. Whereas Abraham Lincoln said, "We call ourselves democracy. It's a government for the people, by the people, of the people. So are blacks not people?" He asked that question. But a whole lot of people opposed it. So this is one example where beliefs condition us, not necessarily in the matter of whose God is more powerful, whose holy book is more sacred, etc., but even various forms of human rights and human sentiments. Everybody has their own outlooks. Therefore, we wonder why this happens. In fact, as a result of various beliefs with regard to varieties of topics that we hold on to, we lose our sensitivity to actual life. We see things through the lens of our own beliefs. And when there is no true sensitivity, then there is right away disorder in our life. Krishnaji demanded that we notice the disorder in the way we live. He said, more than reading any book, it's important that we read the book of our life, as the well-known expression goes. Read the book of your life. And what he meant, of course, is to be watchful, to be without a bias, aware of how we think, how we talk, how we act, and so on. This coming upon order in daily life requires tremendous honesty, great earnestness, in order that disorder, which is all kinds of contradictions, in order that disorder goes away, we need to really not imagine what it is to live in an orderly way. That would be a utopian idea. That would be a conjecture. That would be a fancy model how we should be. And if we go about that exercise of imagining how we should be, that itself can be a trap that can take us away into more and more enjoyable imagination. And the tragedy would be we go more and more away from understanding what actually is happening. Therefore, once I asked Sri Kabir Jayatirtha, late Kabir Jayatirtha, how would you express Krishnaji's teachings in one sentence? He smiled at me and without any delay, he said, for me, all the teachings come down to one statement, to be with what is. And at that point of time, I was a bit shaken. Oh, is that so? And over the years, I have begun to appreciate that summing up extensively, immensely, to be with what is. What is in the life of all of us is disorder. And to be aware of that disorder, to be intensely aware of how there is fear, where there could be love, but we are in fear. How there is some desire to become, how there is some chasing of pleasure or power or position in gross ways or in subtle ways. As there are these movements in our psyche, they take us away from a clear perception of whatever there is. We are hijacked by these desires, fancies, ideals, and so on. Therefore, I would once more say this order in daily life cannot be a matter of conforming to a picture of how human life ought to be, as drawn or received from some book, some teacher, and so on. Rather, it has to emerge from seeing for ourselves how there is a contradiction in the way we set out about anything. Take, for example, there is in the world, in so-called popular literature, a lot of discussion on how much a person should sleep. And years ago, probably when I was a college-going boy, I had read a humorous quote. How much or how many hours should a person sleep? And some Chinese proverb was quoted in some magazine. 8 hours for women, 7 hours for men. Other way around. 6 hours for men, 7 hours for women, and 8 hours for a fool, it said. Sorry to quote that, it is highly biased against women in the first place. That itself is a gross error over there. But I am quoting that as it was in that magazine, 6 hours for men, 7 hours for women, and 8 hours for a fool, it was said. I'm sure such quotations make that magazine sell better, for a lot of people are carried away by such fanciful statements. But over the years, even recently also, I keep reading a little about this sleep. What is the understanding about the requirement of sleep and so on. And even today in the United States, a theory is going around. The 8 hours of sleep is very important for people if they want to stay healthy and so on. Last time I was in that part of the world, a gentleman, a very educated, well-placed gentleman in Los Angeles gave me a long lecture saying to me, do sleep 8 hours, Chidanandji. That is very important for if you want to live long and so on. And for a moment I was a bit shaken. Is that so? Have doctors said that and so on? That theory is going around. A lot of people talk about it. But after some more study, having raised that example, though it's an example here, I am convinced that number of hours of sleep that you and I require has much to do with the quality of sleep. It has much to do with the quality of our waking hours. If the waking hours are marked by less conflict, less contradiction, it is likely that we sleep also quite deeply and the number of hours required then would be less. How gross an error it is to make a sweeping statement, everybody should sleep 8 hours, and so on. Now, coming more seriously to the point, it is exactly here that rather than borrowing some kind of model from here or there, even if they are medically competent people, there is something called listening to our own body, listening to our own body's voice, being aware of our tiredness, being aware of our exhaustion, and being able to distinguish, which is not easy in the beginning, but once we are well informed, we can learn this art. Being able to distinguish between laziness, when also we want to just sleep, and real tiredness of the body, where it is a genuine demand of the body. Therefore, what we described a while ago as being with what is not to be taken as some abstract concept. Rather, it has implications in a number of areas. To notice one is tired, or to notice one is feeling a bit lazy, or one is lacking in motivation, one doesn't like the work that one is doing, therefore thinks of hitting the bed. To notice it, what actually is happening, is part of being with what is. And out of that being with what is, out of clearly distinguishing laziness from tiredness, there can emerge a certain right action. As I was reflecting on this whole matter of order in daily life, it came to my mind Tagore's poem 35 in, rather 35, yes, in Gitanjali, has a line. Most of you are familiar with that. I'm referring to the poem which begins with, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, and so on. And almost last but one line, where the mind is led forward by thee, Tagore says to quote and unquote God, O Lord, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action. And I found a parallel. Leave aside God, leave aside my Lord, that Tagore uses as the expression. If in its place we were to look at intelligence, not just habit, intelligence. If intelligence were to lead our mind into ever widening thought and action, for obviously to live in awareness, to live in intelligence is not running away from thought or action. Till we die, till we drop dead, there will be thought, there will be action. However, the big question is, are our thoughts and actions coming from beliefs or some kind of opinion, or are thoughts and actions emerging from right seeing, from intelligence? In that light, the words of Tagore seem to be highly relevant to this evening's topic, where the mind is led forward. I take the liberty to substitute here to convey the point, where the mind is led forward by intelligence into ever widening thought and action. So that is where mechanicalness can leave us in a very gracious manner. We notice we are mechanical. We notice we are irrelevant, or a particular action that we are embarking on has no relevance to the present circumstance or the present condition. All of you surely know what mechanical is. To give an example, all the same, when during certain months of the year, sun was entering the room through a certain window, and it was a classroom scenario, the students would go and pull the curtain to prevent the sun from entering the classroom. When the sun's position changed and the sun was no more entering the room because at some other months of the year, the angle was different. Some boys, just like that, oh, the class is beginning, the teacher has come, and they were pulling the curtain. That is an example, a simple example of how they had become so mechanical. They forgot the very purpose of pulling the curtain. Sun or no sun, the boy went to pull the curtain. Likewise, you and I tend to behave, think, talk, and act with no relevance or no connection with the present scenario. So, how is that to go? By one more set of do's and don'ts, or one more leader saying, guys, stop doing that way, now start doing this way. So, by injunction, by order, by somebody imposing, or by ourselves resolving, tomorrow onwards, I'm going to be this way or that way, things are not going to change. That will be another form of mechanicalness. Thus, we understand how the teachings talk about living from moment to moment. The past cannot hold the present in its grip. The past is dead and gone. Thus, we have to see what disorder is, and subtle movements within us taking form of various emotions. Fear is an emotion, or greed is an emotion. There is the emotion of fancying how popular one might become, how much sought after one might become, or the fear of how nobody might want me, nobody might reach me, nobody might value me, and there is a fear. So when all these emotions arise, we certainly lose the equipoise, we certainly lose a certain capacity to feel a situation as it is. Because that fear, that greed, or that desire casts its shadow upon our perception. And no wonder when we are affected by fear or desire, our psyche undergoes a certain distortion. There is then conflict, there is then contradiction. Then we do not accept the way life is moving. We are constantly trying to change things around us, within us. In fact, if I may say, on one hand, we want to become something. On the other, we are rejecting what we are. There is a picture of who I am, and there is a rejection, self-rejection. And friends, self-rejection is one of the major causes of sorrow, of worry, of regret, of certain melancholy, certain lacking good mood, absence of cheerfulness. Number of psychological maladies arise from self-rejection. I don't accept myself as I am. Though outwardly I am asking everybody to accept me as I am. But the truth is, I myself inwardly am not accepting myself. So popular words in psychology go as inferiority complex and such words. But we must know that within us there is a capacity to put things in their place. No matter what, no matter how our body is healthy or sick, no matter what our beliefs have been, true or false, it is possible for us to look at them, stand apart from them in a manner of saying, and without fighting with them, without having a battle with them, can we just see the structure of how our thought operates? Then I guess the disorder in the form of conflict and contradiction, dissipation of emotional and thought energy ceases. There comes about a gentle coming to terms with whoever we are. And this inner harmony, we are gracefully in harmony with whatever we are. I am sick, but I don't complain that I am sick. I made a mistake. I said something with wrong grammar, or I spoke something which was factually incorrect. That is just one part of the story. Imagine, because I made a statement, suppose I say instead of Abraham Lincoln, suppose I said John F. Kennedy, and then oh my God, in front of all these friends, I made a mistake. Please see how it reacts. So in numerous ways, something happens in our life at the levels of thought, word, or deed, and then there is a second wave of lamenting, of saying, oh, this should not have happened, and so on. So there is this mechanism, there is this dynamism of thought and emotions within us. If only we were to be watchful of the way everything happens, in that watchfulness, there can come about a truce, or truce may not be an adequate word. I should say there can come about peace. To illustrate, somebody, to convey the point, somebody may be wearing Gandhian clothes, or we call it khadi, right? Very simple cotton clothes. But that person might be feeling proud. I am a virtuous person. I have done such and such sacrifice and so on. In sharp contrast, just to convey the point, we have nothing against khadi, nor do we have any preference for a three-piece suit. But to convey the point, how psychology, gate crashes into our life, I would say, in contrast, there could be a person in a three-piece suit, very well dressed, with shining shoes and well-combed hair and whatnot. And someone else may look at that person. Oh, must be a very rich person, must be a very highly educated, well-placed person. Let others think whatever they want to. This person can feel just with everybody else. In a three-piece suit, a person can be humble, open, ready to learn and mingle with one and all with no air about him. And someone in khadi can feel proud. Feeling proud has nothing to do with khadi or three-piece suit. I would say, making it further clear why I brought this example, order in daily life has nothing to do with whether we have a palatial house or we live in a little hut, whether we know 3 languages or we don't know our own mother tongue also in going by proper grammar and so on. In the light of all this, we must spend a few minutes now, then I will close. What constitutes disorder? The absence of which is order. Obviously, something like personal ambition. In fact, ambition alone is enough. I need not add the word personal, but just to sometimes make the matter clearer. Ambition seldom is not personal. Ambition 99 out of 100 cases is personal. Behind ambition, there is the dream of one becoming some big person, one becoming a rich person or a famous person or a powerful person. Therefore, I would once more say the word ambition would have been enough, but let me make it amply clear. Personal ambition right away causes disorder in the psyche. For driven by that personal ambition, sensitivity gets a bad blow. Therefore, personal ambition is a form of disorder. In contrast, to convey the point, there is dynamism sometimes in every one of us emerging out of love. There's a certain love, there's a certain feeling aligned, feeling harmony with all, and no sense of anybody being superior or inferior. There's a sense of, oneness with all, and a certain love arises. In that love too, tremendous dynamism. One could be swift, one could be energetic, one could be acting enthusiastically, like the so-called ambitious person is seen to act. In ambition, there is certain disorder behind and beneath it, whereas love is free of that disorder. Now, to conclude, I would connect this topic with a couple of technical words which we often use in these sessions. Those of us who are familiar with the teachings know the intimate relation between the self, thought, and time. Therefore, I would like to submit here that disorder is the product of thought, whereas order is the fragrance of awareness. Coming to the self, where there is the self, try as you may, where there is the operation of the self, there is going to be disorder. In gentle watching of the self, in self-knowing, many years ago, the only word I knew was self-knowledge, and that too, some notion of a certain ever-free, pure self. And it is through these teachings that I came upon. Once I remember Rajesh Dalal helped me to see the distinction between self-knowledge and self-knowing. I had to ask Rajesh ji a second time, what did you say? Why are you using the word self-knowing in place of self-knowledge? And in his characteristic loving style and with a lot of passion, he had answered me. And if I got it right, it is this. Self-knowing is nothing to do with some transcendental state. Self-knowing is, here is the self operating in us. Here is the self with its insecurity, and one notices, there is this fear here. There is this dislike. There is already this labeling going on of that guy or this lady. The self is out to judge X or Y. So there is something in us which notices that happening. And Rajesh ji, in his own words, I don't remember the exact words he spoke to me, but helped me understand that there is a process of self-knowing. And in that self-knowing, something happens. A moment before, one could be riding on the self, but now in self-knowing, even though the self is in operation, self is not out of the scene, but there is certain space, and you are as though in that space, and this little self with its fear, with its insecurity, is in that space being watched or being noticed. And I would dare say that self-knowing can bring about order. Order can show up there and disorder can exit. That possibility seems to exist in that self-knowing. And the third one is time. I said thought, self, and time. Time is, we are talking, of course, of psychological time, not the clock time. Time is intimately connected with becoming, with wanting to become. Krishnaji said at some place, man's sorrow is in wanting to become. Full stop. He did not say become what. I must confess, in the early years of my trying to study these teachings and make some sense out of it, I was uncomfortable. Man's sorrow is in wanting to become. Become what? Then very soon I began to rather appreciate. Leave it there. Leave it there. Don't worry about become what. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to become. What you want to become and your energy goes towards becoming, you are in trouble. There is the movement of the self in all grandeur or in all ugliness, call as you like. Therefore, where there is time, there is wanting to become, whereas where there is alert presence, alert being, not becoming, alert being, which is not to be misunderstood as some kind of stony existence, because between becoming and being, our mind generally tends to look at becoming as movement and being as stationary. And our old conditioning could be such: being stationary is death, movement is life, and being stationary is death. Chalti ka naam gaadi, we may remember, and we may wonder, oh, this departure of wanting to becoming or cessation of wanting to become, and they talk about being and becoming. Isn't being a kind of a stagnation? We beg to differ. We beg to disagree. Somewhere else it could be so, but here being is no stagnation at all. Being in this context is a kind of anchoring ourselves in gentle awareness. Therefore, there is no stagnation. On the contrary, beautiful, loving movement can take place on the personality level, but where one is stationed is not caught in the process of becoming. That's how I have shared at random various thoughts. In summary or in conclusion, I would say that right within us there is the self operating, and right within us there is the intelligence, which, if only given the chance, can bring all disorder to end. Let's give chance to this innate intelligence in us, this light within ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siddhartha. It's a wonderful speech. Thank you very much. May I request Harshad Parikh sir to comment on this, to add something? Harshad Parikh sir.
Okay. Are you able to hear?
Definitely
able
we are able to hear. We are able to
Yeah.
hear.
Okay. Thank you, Chidanand ji. You have explained, spoken in very beautiful way. I like to say something about what I observed on the street of a city. And I have told this to many people, but it says something very much related to our topic. I saw with a friend that there was a little rat and it had a short tail and it was trying to catch its own tail but it was not able to. So it was going round and round like that. And it was very interesting for people to watch on the street. And the people were around, all they were laughing at the rat. But the rat was not aware that there were people around. And it went on for some few minutes. And then somebody touched the rat, and the rat moved straight and escaped. So this is what is happening to all human beings, that we are going round and round in our mechanical way of thinking, reacting, and we are not really aware of why this is happening. So my life was also like that only. When I was in USA, and I had many problems, cultural shock, and academic problems, and financial problems, and many. Of course, later on, everything was fine, except I was going round and round in thinking, imagining, worrying about the future, or if somebody said something which disturbed me, thinking about it. So I was like that, going round and round in thinking. And then I came across a book. And then some questions Krishnaji asked in the book, that why we are like this, why we are afraid, why there is fear, why there is anger, from where all this comes. So everything is coming from thinking only. Our problems of psychological nature, they are coming from thinking, and we are not aware of it, this process of thinking, and so it multiplies. And then we react with anger, and we carry it on for a long time, even when it is not necessary, you know. So that is what our life is, a life in this disorder, because we are not aware of what is happening, how these thoughts are arising. And so when I read Krishnamurti book, first book, I became very curious to look within myself how these thoughts are arising. And to look at it, one has to be initially, one has to be alone, and then one has to be very, very silent, very curious to watch. And this thing is very difficult for most people, to be alone, to be silent, to direct our attention inward and look at how these thoughts are coming. That is what is called reading the book of one's life, as a, because this book of our life is being written every moment. Many thoughts are coming, and it is wonderful. This reading the book of our own life is much more important than reading any other book, because this book is telling us what is going on. And and in this kind of looking, which is really a freedom, and that what Krishnaji calls it choiceless awareness. And that is what the whole teachings of Krishnamurti, that when this awareness is awakened, not saying that I am aware of this, I am aware of that, that is just a word. The real awareness is non-verbal, non-verbal looking at whether the objects are there, or even the thoughts and feelings, looking at it very, very clearly. And once this awareness comes in our life, then we can really see the whole thing, how the problems are being generated at the source. And so I found it very, very interesting to look, and it began to change the quality of life. And I really begin to look at things around me without thinking, without carrying on this round and round movement of thinking. And that brings order in life, this just looking. Because this awareness, this perception is the action which Krishna ji says. So that perception, I call it awareness, intelligence, whatever word, choiceless awareness, whatever word. I don't analyze all this attention. So that awareness is in a different dimension than thinking. So sometimes I say that thinking is like a two-dimensional plane surface. And as long as we are on that surface, we cannot see the whole surface. But if we come out from that two-dimensional surface of thinking, rising above the surface, then we can see the whole surface. So awareness is coming out from this two-dimensional surface of thinking and then looking clearly at thinking. And that is the wonderful thing. And once it happens, then we don't need to read anything, because this reading of our own book of life goes on by itself without any choice, without any effort. And in that awareness, one can listen to people speaking and without interpreting what the person is saying, or we can listen to the birds singing, or even the barking of a dog, we can listen without any reaction. So that is the real freedom, when we don't react with negativity, that this is very boring, or like I hear even young children in the school, because they have to do so many things in the daily life. And we also, most of us, when we have to do many things in our life which we don't like, and we force ourselves to do such thing, then there are many conflicts arise, and that destroys this conflict, destroys this sense of awareness, which is really looking at boredom or anger or fear. When one becomes very, very curious, one can go to the source of the problem. So that is what I feel the Krishnamurti's teachings, that order comes, and to be with what is, that means moving with our thinking. Like as we move with if we can move with the speed of light, the chronological time stops, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, that if if we can move, we remain young as we are. There is no chronological time, there is no growth in our body. We remain young forever if we can, but we cannot move with the speed of light. Similarly, when we can move with this thinking, with what is unfolding in front of our eyes as well as in our mind, then in moving with what is, the psychological time stops actually. And in that there is a freshness. We don't feel tired. And even though we work, we feel that we are not doing any work. And without this, moving with what is, there will be what should be and what is, there is a conflict. And that conflict, if we are not aware of it, it will lead to tiredness. And even without doing much, we can feel very tired. So I think I have said enough thing. Let me see. Yes. So that is what the order means, to be in touch with what is as it is unfolding moment by moment. Thank you.
Unmute and tell Dinesh Wagmare.
Sir, I want to ask Swamiji, like why we are condemning this becoming an ambition? Because one has to, in life, normally, the fact is one has to explore all the possibilities of its potential, and becoming is also a fact of life. So why we are condemning this becoming an ambition? Yes, we can take, we can look into the possibility of taking help of intelligence inside.
Right. Yeah, so this is where the subject is a bit difficult to communicate. We definitely do not mean to condemn becoming. In fact, whether we want it or not, in life, all of us become this or that. Life has a dynamism through which we become something. But now there is another part. Is it wrong to want to become, to set a goal and move towards that? That if that is the question, over there, in the light of this subject, these teachings, we talk about two dimensions. One is the setting the goal and working towards achieving that goal. The other dimension is especially of importance in this subject. What is the second dimension? Even as we set goals and move towards it, suppose, as it often happens, there is a certain constant evaluation. I am ahead, I am behind, I am gone now. Oh, I am doing so well. So the teachings ask us to gently question these labels that we put upon ourselves. In my talk, I had said that there is a dynamism in love, and then there is the dynamism of ambition. In dynamism of ambition, one is all the time having this self-evaluation. In the dynamism of love, there is only the objective planning, and one loves the subject, one loves people, one does things out of love of a subject. Like you want to, take the example of science. You want to do some advanced research. You love, let's say, chemistry. And then you work towards setting up a laboratory, having some associates. It's a whole project. So the teachings have nothing against that whole planning and so on. But suppose you entertain thoughts of being less deserving or more deserving, etc., those do not stand the test of this true wisdom. You are actually, something that cannot be judged. So this judging is in the field of ignorance. Or if I may draw from the language that Harshadji used, when one is watching what is, there will be no creation of the self. Moment there is a gap, that we are not with what is, and we have slipped into what should be. By this time I should have been the head of this organization, whereas that guy has become. I am 3 rungs below the highest position. This is called the operation of the self. Therefore, okay, without being long on it, I wish to submit that there is absolutely nothing about wanting to become. If we had a tone of condemnation or tone of criticism that was specifically on the operation of the self-judgment, self-evaluation, and so on, which are actually not true. So someone who is living in heightened awareness will not have those judgments. He sees that something has failed and then he wonders what can be done about it and gets going about it. Or something has succeeded, he gets going about maybe the next stage. Whereas in a certain mechanicalness and falling a prey to certain conditionings, we label ourselves and there is suffering. So go ahead and plan to become something, but the challenge is, can you do so without any suffering, any egoistic suffering? That's the challenge.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I think Sachidanandji has raised the hand.
Satchidanand, Tarun, and Balram Behra.
Yes, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, sensitivity to natural life.
Yeah.
How do I understand that? Am I sensitive to nature is the question.
Am I sensitive to nature?
Yes, sir.
So what is the question here? How
you spoke about being sensitive to natural life.
Natural life.
Yes.
Oh.
My question
I
is,
don't know whether I used exactly that word, but I definitely talked of sensitivity. In fact, my very frank and open submission in that matter is, it's not again on the physical level, because in various ways, life subsists on life. Life involves, some damage to other forms of life. So the reference is that aspect of sensitivity where one is going about things with like when there is no need at all, with no need, but just out of some confusion, one destroys things. One just wants to possess something. Like China is now being so aggressive, going by some old records. They want to say that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to them. I have no hesitation in calling it utter lack of sensitivity. Life is moving beautifully in Arunachal Pradesh under India's supervision, but they have an agenda. It's an operation of the self. The leaders over there probably ensure continuation of their position by declaring war and showing themselves to be strong and whatnot. Therefore, my submission is the lack of sensitivity is not so much about whether you cut a tree or do not cut a tree. That has its own place. But the lack of sensitivity that I am referring to is a certain distortion of the psyche where one gets some sadistic pleasure, maybe in destroying something, where one has an agenda, like I come to office and I bang, I scold some subordinate of mine, I am the boss. Suppose there is an ulterior motive there. I want to impress these other two people that I am the person in power. So these ulterior motives, this covering up of some insecurity within us, this is what I am objecting to. Otherwise, a boss could take a subordinate to task if there is some delay in her work, his work, and so on. One can cut a tree, one may be non-vegetarian, one may eat meat, and many things. There is in that there is no issue. But if there is a psychological distortion, wanting to show off, wanting to get some sadistic pleasure in things, that is lack of sensitivity.
So when you say life,
Yeah.
sensitive to life, in that
Yeah.
animals are not involved, sir. Life means animals are not there. It's only human beings. When I kill animal to eat, can I see that I'm causing destruction? I mean, I'm causing the cruelty.
Yes.
Even in
yes.
our own religion, Hinduism, they said not to kill to eat.
However, from time immemorial in Hindu religion too, some 80% people have been non-vegetarian, and the scriptures have always allowed it. The Hindu scriptures never said every Hindu has to be vegetarian. Never. I personally believe that Ram was meat eating, Krishna was meat eating in our stories.
So can I see I justify and rationalize, sir, my actions? Ram killed,
Actually,
he fought a war and killed people also. I mean, we are also doing the same thing. When I put a line and say this is my country and that is your country, can I see this line, which is an imaginary line, causes the destruction? The moment I call myself Indian, there is destruction, there is violence. And
yeah,
again,
I do agree.
we are
Sensitivity cannot be limited to humanity. It has to extend to animals, plants, everywhere. But I think talking of Hindu scriptures.
My question is, am I sensitive to life? Not only human life. Am I sensitive to life was my question, sir.
I guess your own heart would know that. It cannot be subjected to some standards written in a book. Your heart would know whether you are playing with some concept or whether you are addressing a true need of your existence. If someone eats meat as a response to his true need, then it's very different.
No, taste is a pleasurable activity, isn't it, sir? Eating, it's a pleasure. It gives me pleasure. So can I see the pleasure and the destruction which go together?
That needs to be further analyzed. Did Harshadji want to say anything on this?
Yeah. May I say? Yes.
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Krishnaji has also said that when we lose touch with nature, we lose touch with human beings. So what I understand by being sensitive, it means being free from to have goodness and love, and not to kill animals or birds, and to look everything with happiness. So sensitivity to me, it means not to harm human beings, and only that can happen only if we are free within ourselves from hate and all negative thoughts and feelings. Then I think we are sensitive, and we will not really kill intentionally for pleasure, because human beings are killing because they love for pleasure. For pleasure, they are destroying nature. So that is not sensitivity. We will not even break a branch of a tree if we are really aware, just out of thoughtlessness. So that is what I consider sensitive means, to be really good, to have good feelings for birds, animals, human beings, not to carry very bad thoughts and feelings, not to be disturbed within, because being angry is also a part of violence. And we are not sensitive to our own self also when we become very angry or we get carried away by our ideas, opinions, all that. So the sensitivity is a very, very vast subject. And it's not just about eating meat or not killing animals. It goes psychological violence, which is much more destroying than physical violence. And physical violence comes because there is a psychological violence within human beings. Okay, I have said enough.
So is it only killing, sir? Can I see the cruelty which takes these animals for my meat, for my eggs, and also for my milk? We consider ourselves to be wise people. We are we are readers of K and things like that. I have well read, and at the same time, I can't see a simple thing like my food habit is causing all the destruction and the cruelty to the animals. We are a very, very tiny majority on the planet, sir. We are only 0.03% of the entire species. And we have wiped away nearly 85% of the species. And our own survival has become a threat. Now, I can give examples, of X was drinking and Y was eating and all that. But I'm going back to the past, sir. Can I see what is happening now? As a wise person, can I see what is happening now is the question, sir. That is about all. It is not about getting angry or not angry. It is not about being, calm and not being calm. When I see the truth, when I face the fact, I face the fact. I come out with that. There's nothing to be angry about it, nothing to be calm about it. So when I use such words, again, am I trying to move away from what is the question, sir? Over.
Yeah. Yes, but you cannot change the humanity, right? If you really feel very strongly, you can live that way. And then there will be no conflict with other people. But you cannot make...
it is not me, sir. When I say I, it's all of us. We are having a dialogue here. When I say I, it's all of us.
Yeah. So can we change humanity like that by saying that you must be very sensitive?
Kate did mention that, no, sir. If you radically change, it affects the humanity. So why can't I do it is the question. I consider myself as a K reader. Why can't I do it?
I have heard that Krishnaji himself used to take eggs. Is that
sir,
true?
it is not true, sir. I mean, again, I'm going back to Rama and Krishna and K and all that. See, again, I'm trying to rationalize and reason it out. 30, 40 years back, this kind of cruelty would not have been with the animals. The newborn chicken, if it's a male chicken, it is slaughtered straight away. And the male pups again slaughtered once again. And the female ones are kept in hardly any space to move about. Every day I drink that dairy milk. Is it so important for me to drink that? There's so many other milks available in the market, which comes from your from the rice also. You make milk from animals. You make soya. You make it is available in the market. I mean, giving the case example is not correct, sir. And in fact, K was he was lactose intolerant. Occasionally, he had a teaspoon of curd. And eggs, when it came to eggs, it was a discussion which took place in Australia. He was talking about, what are you talking about eggs? You can have, if it is infertile egg or something like that. He did not say he eats eggs. So everywhere they're quoting that, they say that he eats eggs, but it is not true. Even if it is true, I mean, why are we going back into the past? Whether he ate or not is a different question. Can I see what is happening now? Over, sir. With that, my questions are over, sir.
Now, Dr. Adhikaram, who came from Sri Lanka to Rishi Valley, to talk with Krishnaji. Dr. Adhikaram was a Buddhist, and he was very, very strong like you about vegetarianism and not eating eggs and milk. And he talked with Krishnaji about that. But Krishnaji said, you have to draw a line somewhere. So Krishnaji was not very, very strong about this. And he did not talk even much about eating of meat. Only once in a while he talked about. But he was talking about the violence. From where does it come? That psychological violence, not about physical violence. Physical violence comes, of course, from psychological violence, but he was addressing at a much deeper level, at the psychological level, why human beings are fighting in the name of religion or nationality, or why we get angry, why we get carried away by ideas, idealism. So he was talking about that at that level. So you won't find much Krishnamurti saying about not eating meat or something like. Very, very rarely you will find. Yeah.
So that is not true, sir. He
Yeah.
spoke about life, sir. He says, don't kill to eat. I mean, he doesn't have to keep on repeating a million times. The truth cannot be, I mean, if you repeat it, it doesn't become the truth. I mean, if you say don't eat, I'm sorry, I've lost myself. He doesn't have to repeat a million times, sir. That is the truth. It's a fact. Whether he said once or 1 million times, that is the truth. Not to kill to eat.
Yeah, we are not killing. I'm not killing actually, I would say, but I can't stop the humanity.
Sir, but can I see my actions are doing that?
Yeah.
When I consume my milk, when I mean all that is causing the killing which is going on.
We can get stuck with just one issue like that. But what we are talking about is about looking at the deeper level within ourselves, how we get carried away also by ideas.
Sir, I'm talking about life.
Yeah. Mm.
Life is relation. Relation is life. Relationship is life. Without a relationship, there's no life. So what is my relationship with life? Life means not only just the human beings. It is not me and my wife, me and my children, me and my friends. That is grossly, misunderstood. Life, sir, we are talking about life is relationship. Krishnamurti has repeated that millions of times.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand life is relationship. It's not my relationship with you, not my relationship with my wife, not my relationship with my children, my grandchildren. It's very limited.
Yes. Yes. So as long as we are thinking, we have no relationship. Only when we are really silent and no sense of self, that is what Krishnaji is talking about. That is what love is when the self is not. If I get very much
caught in my,
yeah.
I'm
If
so
I
caught in my pleasurable activities, sir. And eating is really a major habit which I've developed.
Yeah.
And I cannot change my early morning, my first thing, my coffee in the morning. I can have black coffee, but I refuse to have black coffee. I need with milk. So these are the habits which I've got used to it. Nothing to go deep or nothing to be silent about it. Can I observe my habits are the cause for these problems? I mean, which is taking place on this planet. If I'm so serious about it, 97% of the scientists have said our eating habit is going to be the cause for the 6th mass extinction of human beings. Other animals are going to go extinct, but also human beings. It may take about 2,000 years for us to get back to what we are right now, 2,000 years or more than that. So if I really care for my children, for all the others' children and the people on the planet, would I continue doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Germany, for that matter, they have banned the meat for all government officials. They said they don't want to continue with the killing. Nestle, one of the biggest milk producing company, they want to, I mean, stop going for the cow's milk. They want to go for other sources of milk. Nestle is one of the largest industry on the planet. But I don't understand, sir. That is what I'm saying. We talk about so much about, achieving, some to remain with what is, right thinking and right action and all that. But I don't see the simple thing. That is what I'm saying. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Sir. Nothing more than that.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. Sir.
No, so if you can see it, you can live that way, there will be no problem. At least for you, humanity will continue. It's not going to change.
So
But
it has
can
been
you
a couple
be
of
really-
years since
Yeah.
I have stopped all animal products. Now you're forcing me to
Yeah.
say that. Like when
Yeah.
we read Krishnamurti, he says, I am the world and
Yeah.
the world is me. How do I
Yeah.
understand that is the question? It is not me
Yeah.
personally doing. I
Yeah.
have done it. If you ask me, I have done it.
Yeah.
Parekh
No,
sir,
not me. I'm a
Parekh sir,
non-vegetarian from the
Yeah.
I'm a non-vegetarian from the time I've been born, and we
Yeah.
used to eat every day. I mean, we have given it. I have given it up. And that's what I'm saying. So it is not
Yeah.
about me, sir. It is not about me.
Yeah.
What I do or what I don't do I'm not talking
Yeah.
about it. Then, as a K reader, I'm saying, can we look at that when I say life is relationship? When I say
Yeah.
I'm sensitive to life, can I look at that?
Yeah.
Is what I'm questioning. That's
Yeah.
about all. Nothing more than that, sir.
No, you may be.
Tarun,
Yeah. You may be a pure vegetarian. That's wonderful. But there are other deeper things. Have you gone into it within yourself to be really free to have love and all that? What Krishna ji is talking about. Or
So
you
that
are
is
stuck
precisely
with
what
only
I'm saying, sir.
one
That is
issue.
precisely what I'm saying. How can I
Yeah.
know love when I don't understand that I'm responsible for the
Mm.
killing of the cow? How can I understand that a male chick?
मैं इसमें बीच में बोलने की क्षमा चाहता हूँ, लेकिन क्या आप एक भी
Right.
फूड बता सकते हैं जो बायोलॉजिकल या जीव के बगैर आया हो? कोई भी ऐसा भोजन है नमक के सिवा जो आदमी बायोलॉजी या जीव के अलावा कहीं से प्राप्त कर सकता है? सर्वाइवल के लिए फूड नेसेसरी है बॉडी के लिए, और जो
Absolutely.
भी है या तो बायोलॉजिकली आएगा वो भी जिंदा है, या फिर वो एनिमल और अन्य चीजों से आएगा। एक नमक सिवा सारा फूड ऐसे ही होता है। सांस
You're
लेने में भी
absolutely right,
कुछ
sir.
बैक्टीरिया की जो है हवा में मौत हो जाती है, तो क्या आदमी सांस ना लेगा? ये तो दिमाग की, जो आदमी सेंसिटिव है उसको जो हत्या होती है या आपके जैसा दर्द होना स्वाभाविक है, लेकिन मिल्क इसमें पालतू एनिमल होते हैं। गाय कुत्ता ये पालतू एनिमल है। जिन लोगों ने गाय को पालते हुए देखा है वो पाएंगे वहाँ क्रूअलिटी नहीं है। गाय हिंदुस्तान में एक फैमिली मेंबर का स्थान पाई हुई है, और गाय को कई चीजों के लिए पलने की जरूरत होती है। वो अकेले अलोन सरवाइव नहीं कर सकती। जो गाय अकेले आवारा फिरती है उनकी स्थिति देखिए, वो पालतू गाय से ज्यादा बदतर है, वहां पे ज्यादा क्रूअलिटी है। ये दिमागी एक स्तर होता है, जो आदमी सेंसिटिव होता है वो अपने आप को शाकाहारी बना लेता है, और जो दूसरों की पीड़ा में जो पीड़ा करता है, जिसको पीड़ा में मजा आता है, वो क्रूअल है, और वहां सेंसिटिविटी की रियल जरूरत है। एंड इट इज टोटली ए पर्सनल एस्पेक्ट, यू कैन नॉट जनरलाइज इट। जो क्रूअल है वो क्रूअल है, और कई दफे वो सेंसिटिव होकर उन चीजों को छोड़ भी देता है। अगर कई लोग स्ट्रिक्ट शाकाहारी हैं तो यही सेंसिटिविटी उसके पीछे काम करती है, और जिनको सिर्फ अपने मजे से मतलब है तो उनको किलिंग से फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, वो अपने तर्क गढ़ लेते हैं। तो इस चीज को जनरलाइज नहीं किया जा सकता। आप सेंसिटिव है बहुत अच्छी बात है, और किलिंग नहीं होनी चाहिए ये भी बहुत अच्छी बात है, लेकिन हर एक का दिमाग नहीं समझाया जा सकता। इट कैन नॉट बी जनरलाइज कि सारी दुनिया ऐसा हो जाए। ये हाइपोथेसिस है। ये दुनिया में अगर शेर ऐसा सोचने लगे तो उसको खाने ही नहीं मिलेगा। हर छोटे जीव को उससे बड़ा जीव खाता है, अगर वो नहीं खाएगा तो वो सर्वाइव भी नहीं कर सकता। लेकिन खाने की बात एक अलग होती है और क्रूअलिटी एक अलग चीज है। क्रूअलिटी नहीं होनी चाहिए। खाने के लिए तो जीव ही है, बगैर जीव के क्या खाएगा इंसान? कोई भी जीव बगैर जीव के आहार पा ही नहीं सकता। बैक्टीरिया को वायरस खा जाते हैं, वायरस को माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म खाते हैं, उनको छोटे कीट खाते हैं, उनको चिड़िया खाती है, उसको बिल्ली खाती है, उसको फिर कुत्ता खाता है। इस तरह से ये लाइफ साइकिल चलती रहती है। इसमें कई चीजें बायोलॉजिकल भी है। बायोलॉजी में चूंकि वो कम है, अपनी इंद्रियां कम है और सेंसिटिविटी कम है, मन कम है, तो पीड़ा का स्तर कम जानते हुए बायोलॉजी को लोग वेजिटेरियन मान लेते हैं। क्या पेड़ में जान नहीं होती? क्या उसको स्पर्श नहीं लगता? वो भी तो हम खाते ही हैं। तो ये सर्वाइवल के लिए लाइफ की जरूरी होता है कि हम कुछ खाएंगे और वो वहीं से आएगा, लेकिन मन में क्रूअलिटी नहीं होनी चाहिए।
Sir, that's the whole point, sir. I say I worship the cow. India is one of the biggest exporters of beef. Do I understand? That is my question, sir. Look at my own contradictions. The milk I buy from the milk supplier.
Sir, one who wish to understand will understand. One who is not ready to understand will never understand.
Sir, I mean, we are having a dialogue with you and me, not the world. You and me, we are having a dialogue.
No problem.
So
you have got the sensitivity. I have got the sensitivity. But this is a personalized matter, sir. We cannot generalize it. We cannot impose it on others.
Yeah.
It is not, nobody is imposing, sir. When we are talking about being sensitive to life or sensitive to natural life, that question has been, I have put that question. Am I sensitive? Am I insensitive? That is the question. That's
certainly you are more sensitive. I can say you are most sensitive. But if somebody is not, it is his own choice. We cannot change him.
Sir, we are not trying to change, sir. We are having a dialogue with each other. This question was raised. So if somebody is, he puts another question. I mean, he's looking from his perspective. I am giving my perspective. Can we?
Yes,
can
you are right at your perspective, sir. I salute you for your perspective, but you cannot change other. ये जो मान्यता है ये निहायत पर्सनल कंसेप्ट है और इसमें कोई ना मानना चाहे तो उसे दुनिया का कोई लॉजिक और कोई फोर्स नहीं मनवा सकता। ये आदमी की व्यक्तिगत स्वतंत्रता है।
चिदानंद जी और अर्शद तारिक सर टाइम खत्म हो गया है। सर टाइम फिनिश हो गया है। अपन इसको बाद में अगले उसमें कभी कंसिडर कर लेंगे।
For tonight, I think we should close now.
Okay. हाँ, we should close now. और सर नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए सब्जेक्ट बता देंगे तो मेहरबानी रहेगी। अर्शद तारिक साहब से मैंने बात की हुई है, तो नेक्स्ट का क्या सब्जेक्ट रखेंगे तो बता देते हैं।
संपर्क में रहेंगे।
जी तो अर्शद सर और आप मिलकर डिसाइड कर लें जो भी अर्शद सर तो कंटिन्यू। थैंक यू वेरी मच टू एक्सप्रेस माय ग्रेटिट्यूड टुवर्ड्स यू and towards Parikh sir and towards every participant. Anand sir, we will continue it in the next lecture. Tarun Jain sir, we will continue it in the next lecture. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vera sir.